This is an iconic Aussie work boot. No fancy cap toes, no fancy leather laces, no fancy logger or dogger heels. Just a pull-on Chelsea and used in the stockyards, campgrounds and general workyards of Australia. And it's handmade in Australia. G'day, welcome back to Bootlosophy, and if we haven't met yet, my name is Tek. I acknowledge the Wajak Noongar Buja and also the Wada Worong and Jaja Worong around Ballarat. This is the Smith Chelsea work boot made by Victorian brand Wootten. Some of you may have seen my interview with Jess Wootten, the leather craftsman and cordwainer who makes these boots. I'm not going to launch into describing the brand because you can check out the interview and see for yourselves what's behind the brand and their vision. Like many countries where once there were craftsmen and brands making heritage stitched boots, we in Australia have been losing that capacity. And it is refreshing that we still have a few like Wootten's and James B. Young out of Alice Springs. We have a brand here in WA called Anastasi, but the main shop that they used to sell out of, Bodkin's Bootery in Fremantle, shut recently, so I'm not even sure if he's still making boots. Now, before I launch into the construction and so on, let me start in reverse and say that these boots, standard, cost 980 Aussie dollars. This pair had to be customized to my feet and cost more because the standard last had to be customized, the leather pattern had to be adjusted during clicking, and a number of things I chose took the price up over $1,000. I'm not going to tell you how much exactly because in customization, the end price really depends on what extra work needs to be done and what you choose. So if you're interested in a customized boot, it's always better to discuss it with them directly and get a quote. However, what I will say is that when I uploaded my unboxing of these boots, someone commented that it was too expensive and un-Australian to charge so much for a profit, especially from a small brand. He said that he would prefer to buy a P&W boot from the US for that price. So let's face that head on. Wootten in Australia are not like the Indonesian Bandung bootmakers who work out of a bicycle shed on the floor. They have a factory in Ballarat that doubles as a showroom and store. This costs money to rent at Australian market rents. They employ around 3 or 4 people, apart from Jess and partner Chris, and they are not low bottom wages like in Indonesia. That costs good wages, insurances and taxes. A pair of boots takes about 30 worker hours to make. Now take away overheads and wages and leather and materials, the bootmaker makes less than $20 per hour. Now I think that's pretty tough to then be thought of as ripping us off. So in my opinion, and I think it's a fair opinion, these are a fair price for handmade, hard to make boots. When I was starting as a young accountant, my boss was accused of charging too much for his services. His reply was, "I'm charging you a pittance for the hours I take to do your work, but I am charging you for the 40 years of learning and experience that makes me give you great work." So let's go to style and aesthetics. It is a Chelsea boot. That means it's laceless and is slip-on, characteristically with these elastic side goring panels that allow you to get in and out easily. Now, I'm not going to repeat the history of Chelsea boots, which I've done plenty of times in my other reviews of Chelsea boots. If you're new here and you really want to know about the history of Chelsea boots, go to see my back catalogue, go to see my other reviews of Chelsea boots, like my reviews of many R.M. Williams boots I've already reviewed. In Australia though, Chelsea boots are iconic work boots. Since at least the turn of the 19th to the 20th century, they have been adopted as riding boots and yard boots out in the paddocks of cattle and sheep stations. To my American friends, that's a ranch. And these properties are up to 140,000 hectares, so there's a lot of riding around to be done. In the mid-20th century, they were taken up by other pastoral industries workers like farmers, viticulturalists and planters. More recently, in either soft toe or composite or steel toe versions, they are now also used in general work and building yards and even in mining. This Smith boot is a chunkier version. Woottens also make the Jack Chelsea boot, which is more of a dressy version like what R.M. Williams's Craftsman boots are famous for. However, the Smith displays the rounder and more sprung toe of the traditional work boot, and has a shorter shaft than the jack. In this custom pair, I chose a contrasting stitching and a natural welt, and the cognac rough-out leather has been burnished at the toe and the heel. Let's go straight into construction. But before we do, can I please remind you to click on the like button? And if you are watching but not subscribed, can I ask you to sub now? Both actions would help my channel to grow, and I really truly appreciate your support. Righto, to construction. I will start from the top and work my way down. Firstly, if you order these, the choices can be incredible, even before any last customization. You can order these boots in Australian sizes 6 to 13 with all the half sizes available. There are 16 standard leathers and colours. You can choose the colour of the goring between 3 choices. You can choose about 9 sole options, and you can choose from 3 different edge finishes. The uppers I chose is a rough-out leather tanned in Australia, I believe not far from Ballarat. The skins are, I think, tanned to blue stage in New South Wales, and then the tannage is finished in Victoria. It is about 2 millimeters thick and is very supple with a fine rough-out nap. The clicking, probably a little less complex because it's a rough-out, but still needs care to match colours and nap. Is done by either Jess or Chris. The burnishing at the toes and heels is nice, finely done, and really looking like I've put it there through wear. It is, as you can see, a whole cut. It only has one seam coming up the back. In other videos, I've already described how difficult it is to take a 2D piece of leather and mold it, last it, without creases or folds into a 3D shape. A characteristic of laceless boots is this blocking line. Can you see that? That's caused by the way the leather is pressed before lasting. And it will go away with time. But you know what? I like it being there. It just speaks to the skill. The stitching. And I think because one of their workers has been seriously ill, the stitching is done by Jess as the only other person who can do it. It's very, very fine, very, very clean, and incredibly consistent. I mean, I think if I took a ruler and randomly placed it anywhere on any stitch line, I would count exactly the same number of stitches in an inch. The 2 cloth pulls and the goring are totally securely stitched to the boots. By the way, it is important to note, I think, that in this makeup, every material in this boot, including the cloth pull loops, are made in Australia. Inside, the boot is fully lined with the lining leather, also Australian, about 1 millimeters thick. I tell you, it is soft and comfortable. Now we get to the interesting part. The uppers are connected to the sole construction using the Mackay or Blake rapid stitch method. Briefly, the insole is stitched inside the boot directly to a leather midsole, straight through the inside. The midsole is wider than the boot and therefore forms the welt, or what looks like the welt, on the outside. The outside of the midsole, acting as the welt, is then stitched through to the glued-on rubber outsole. A few things inside what I just said. Firstly, it is as water resistant as a Goodyear welt because the inside stitch does not go through the outsoles like a Blake stitch boot. It goes through the insole and the inside of the midsole. The midsole is then covered by the outsole, it's glued on, and hence also covers the inside stitch. And then the outsole is sewn on the outside of the midsole, acting as the welt. Secondly, there is a steel shank in there, and also there is a layer of cork, despite the lack of a regular welt. Now, in a Goodyear welted boot, the welt creates a cavity as it surrounds the edge of the sole because the welt itself is thick going around the edge, and cork is used to fill that in and provide extra shock absorption. So without a thick welt going around the boot, how does Jess put in a cork layer? Here's the interesting part. The midsole has a donut hole cut through it, making the cavity, and the cork is then filling that donut hole. It is ingenious. Go and watch the interview. The flat rubber outsole is scored through and made locally. Jess tells me this company used to have a big factory, but with less demand for their product is reduced to half a dozen workers. You can get Vibram and Dr. Sol outsoles, but I chose these. The heel stack is made of 4 stacks of veg tan leather, topped by a rubber top lift from these guys. A flat and unlugged or unstudded sole and heel are also typical of Aussie work boots. They give good grip yet don't drag in mud and dirt from outside into the station homestead. Sturdily made, nailed, glued and stitched, it's still quite a light boot. Woottens, being Australian, uses the UK sizing convention. So when I say I'm a 7.5 in Woottens UK size, that means I'm a US 8.5, which means they are lasted true to size or as per your Brannock measurement. There is a complete sizing page and guideline on their website to help you measure your feet and check against their standard sizes. I've actually put a non-affiliate link to their website in the description area below. As I told you, these are custom lasted, so I measured 4 measurements around my feet. Length, width, around the instep, around the ball, and then just made up a custom last. As a result, they're an incredible fit. No more need to be said. As for comfort, it is an incredibly comfortable boot, and if you also follow me on Instagram, you know I've taken these on a couple of trips to the Northern Territory, to Darwin and to Katherine, and I flew in a little charter plane to Gunbalanya in Arnhem Land. In all of those trips, because I was facilitating meetings, I was standing all day. Super, super comfortable because of the fit and the design. Also, these were measured to include a 3mm foam removable comfort insole, which I'll keep in there, I won't take it out. Now, many boot enthusiasts will sneer, if you don't bleed, you're not really wearing the boot. I don't think so. I like my comfort first up. Time to wrap up. All in all, I feel really good in these boots. I'm supporting Australian, and in these crazy times, I don't for 1 minute think that we're going to go bring back large-scale manufacturing to Australia and make Australia great again. I think in a lot of areas, our people don't want to work in those industries, in those factories, ever again. And I think they prefer to work outdoors or in offices and in banks and in electronics and in consulting. However, keeping a skill alive, even if in the hands of a handful of people, means that we support variety and craftsmen and craftswomen if they want to be craftsmen and craftswomen. I also literally feel good in these boots. They fit me like no other boot has fitted me. Yes, they are customized and I paid for it, and not everyone can afford it. But if you had one boot and it's capable of lasting you 20 or 30 years with some recrafting when it needs it, I say that's worth the price. Better than 20 or 30 pairs of throwaway $200 boots in that time. This particular pair, this Smith in the rough out, I can't wear to lots of places, of course. It is not a professional office or a boardroom boot, and I cannot pair it with suits or even professional corporate business casual. But going up north into the bush, going casual to coffee shops and pubs, this is already my favorite boot to just pull on, match anything I'm wearing, and go. And go I shall. Listen, I hope you liked this video. You know what to do, right? Click on like and subscribe. Come back next week for more boot reviews, and from time to time, videos of clothing to go with boots. Take care out there. See you soon.